All right, good morning. I'm John Hotchkiss, chairman of this fine organization. Welcome to the September meeting. I'd like to begin first with introductions, going around the table. To my immediate left.
Marilyn Barton, Strafford Regional Planning.
Dan Comeau, Strafford Regional Planning.
Mark Ambrosi, Strafford Regional Planning.
Laurel Cox, Town of Lee.
Peter Lang, Federal Highway Administration.
Paul Lockwood, New Hampshire DES.
Marcia Gassis, Barrington Town Planner.
Ed Comeau, Brookfield.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Do we now have a quorum?
We're shy of one.
Still short one. So, as we progress through the items, I'm going to do number 2, which is communications, but then item 3, which is draft minutes, requires a vote. I'd like to postpone that later in the meeting, on the off chance someone else might show up. Okay? All right, item 2, please, staff communications from Maryland.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that I had sent letters out for the re-recruitment of the 2-year period that we have for TAC. I've received quite a few, but I still am missing some. And if you don't know if the letter's been sent in, you can check with me and I can let you know. It's just a reminder that I need those as soon as you can get them to me.
Marilyn, I had a question because I got one from Dover. I was supposed to do something, it had Chris Parker on it.
Well, he is a Dover representative, but I got one from you for Barrington. I received,
John Scruton must have said.
he did send that. You're the Barrington representative.
Well, for this, he wanted me to be the other, but they already had to, so I'm
the
still
commissioners,
Dover's.
correct, right.
Dover's
Chris Parker. I'm still waiting to hear. I haven't heard from him.
for TAC, you mean, or
For TAC.
For TAC, okay, because I'm still the
No,
Dover
we're all set
person
with
for the other
commissioners
one.
in Dover. It's
Okay.
just the Dover TAC.
Okay, all right.
That's it?
Yep, that's it.
Thank you. We're going to delay item 3 in the hopes that someone will show up and give us a quorum. Item 4, long-range transportation program update. With
Right.
Mark.
I'd like to start off by just thanking communities for getting back to me about the long-range transportation plan. It was really helpful. The project lists I sent out to communities, I got some good feedback. Fortunately, there were not a lot of major changes at all to these projects, primarily just changing descriptions and in a couple of cases adding some additional vision projects to the list. To start out about the long-range transportation plan, it's going to be kind of a blended discussion items here, where I'm just going to be talking about the 3 plans that we're approving, or hopefully we'll be approving in October. And so just to give a brief overview, we made this a couple of sheets to explain the process that's going on. And so the 3 plans that we're working on right now that we're going to be seeking approval in October for are the 2013 through 2016 Transportation Improvement Program, the 2013 through, I guess it's really the 2040 Air Quality Analysis Determination, and the 2013 through 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So the top plan here, the Transportation Improvement Program, also known as the TIP, this is a plan that shows 4 years of projects and the anticipated funding. This plan needs to show projects receiving federal funding or projects that are considered regionally significant. And the definition for regionally significant is on the Federal Highways website. I can provide that if anybody's interested. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it speaks for itself somewhat. But if projects are regionally significant, we discuss this through the interagency consultation process where the New Hampshire Metropolitan Planning Organizations work with EPA, Federal Highways, Federal Transit, New Hampshire DES, and New Hampshire DOT to make these determinations. The plan must show that we have the funding, the revenues in New Hampshire to pay for the projects in this first 4 years of the plan. So we can reasonably anticipate having all of this funding between federal highways dollars, federal transit dollars, state and local revenues for this plan. And we need to show that in the document. The second plan, which is kind of the companion document to these other two here is the air quality analysis determination. And yeah, Dan, I don't know if you want to briefly get into that.
Sure, yeah. Basically, a part of what we have to do as an MPO, besides putting together these plans, is make sure that because we're in a designated non-attainment area, we have to prove that we are remaining under budget for ozone emissions in the area. So part of what we do is model those emissions and make sure that we are under that budget. This air quality analysis goes through our methodology and procedures for doing that, how we coordinate with the other MPOs and state and federal agencies. Just goes into detail about that process.
The Metropolitan Transportation Plan is our long-range transportation plan, and this shows basically the strategy moving into the future for transportation. This basically gives an outline of the priorities for the region, what types of transportation projects are priorities, how we're going to address safety issues and other number of other planning factors set by federal highways, and these include safety, security, freight mobility, environmental justice, which is dealing with equality for all demographics and socioeconomic statuses of people, and a number of other factors, the environment, walkability, transit. And so this basically lays out our strategy going forward with these projects. The project list in this plan has to reflect those priorities in our document, and we have to use the latest planning assumptions to show financial constraint for these projects and basically lay out, it's kind of a looser document. It's hard to plan out. Really we're planning projects from 2023 through 2040, and it's tough to see that far out in the future, but we do our best to identify what we think the best or the priorities are going to be for transportation. All right, and I want to go through the schedule for approving these documents just quickly. Probably should have shown this at the start of the summer. We made this sheet here. This kind of goes through our process, and so all three of these documents, as far as the when we really ramped up and started working on them, began in June. We started having discussions with New Hampshire DOT, Federal Highways, New Hampshire DES about what we're going to need to do to go through this process. For the three documents, basically the next month in July, for the TIP, we really worked on creating the project list, which we reviewed in August. And that basically shows the projects, the year of financial expenditure, phase of the project. So is the expenditure going towards engineering, right-of-way, or construction, and who's funding it? So federal highway or the federal program, state programs, or local or other programs. The air quality document, we ran our model, we sent our information off to New Hampshire DES, and they basically made sure that between the MPOs and the people who had to show that they were under budget for these air quality pollutants, that we were doing that. And so we went through that process in July. In the Metro plan, we basically went through the list of projects and took out projects that we knew were finished, and then went out to communities to start reviewing the remaining projects. So in August, this is basically since the last meeting, we've done financial constraint for the TIP. The air quality analysis determination's been made. We corrected some of the errors that we had with that, and we are under budget at this point. And we sent out the list to communities of projects for the long-range plan, and we've heard feedback from quite a few of the communities about that list. So now it's September, we need to go out to a 30-day public comment period for all three of these documents starting on September 17th. So it's kind of our deadline for getting the drafts of these completed. We are in good shape for doing that right now. The Transportation Improvement Program is pretty much wrapped up. We're trying to just get everything formatted and into one document. The same holds true for the air quality analysis determination. It's pretty much wrapped up at this point. We're in good shape. And the Metro plan, we're in process of just doing the financial constraint, getting the projects finalized on the list at this point. So we're doing pretty well. And so October, we are looking for a TAC recommendation for policy committee approval of all three of the documents. And later October, we're going to hopefully be having policy committee approval of 3 documents, and we'll be sending it off to New Hampshire DOT at that point. So just to give a brief idea of what we had sent out to communities, we sent just community-specific information out to communities, and this was for the long-range plan. Kind of tough to see this, but these, through our project solicitation process, looking at the New Hampshire Red List bridges, and identifying some of the regional priorities that we've seen here that maybe go beyond just individual communities. We generated these lists, and they had this information. I think everybody here has been sent this information at this point, or all the communities here, I should say. And we kind of just show the projects that we have in the list with some descriptions, the anticipated scope, the anticipated funding source. And so we have a pretty extensive list. A lot of these projects are going to be vision projects in the document. A lot of them are exempt from air quality because they fall into an exemption category for air quality because they're not expanding the road or changing the road in any significant way. I just wanted to give folks an idea of what we had sent out to communities. Again, a pretty extensive list of projects, a lot of new projects in there from the last Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. And so that's basically where we are with the long-range transportation plan. We're finishing up financial constraint, putting the projects all on the list, and then we'll be ready to go out for public comment period in about a week here. Moving on to the Transportation Improvement Program. I guess the biggest step we've made since we've seen everybody last was working with New Hampshire DOT and through the interagency consultation process again, kind of sort out our planning assumptions for showing financial constraint with the TIP. And so to do this process, basically give a rundown of it. I printed out just 1 year to show an example of what we did here. New Hampshire DOT sent us a long list of projects, and it was basically all the projects planned for the next 4 years in the entire state. From this list, we pulled out the projects that were planned for the Strafford region, and that's what you see in this area, by year, by funding source, the state funding source, and by program and how much money. So we have the total for each funding source, and we also have the total for the year. And so this is federal highways. We also have federal transit and state funding shown in this. Moving further down here, again from the list that New Hampshire DOT sent us of all the programmed projects in the state, so all the projects we think are going to be happening in the next 4 years. We have the other planned projects from regions in New Hampshire. So this is basically every project that is specifically called out in the rest of the state other than the Strafford region. And again, it goes by the state program, the funding sources, and then we have the totals at the bottom. And we have that for federal highways, federal transit, and state funding. And then the final, at the program side, again, for 2013 is the statewide program funds. There are a number of categories that are statewide. They're grouped. The funding hasn't been split out into specific projects at this point, but we still plan for a certain amount to be there every single year to do the betterment, paving, bridge inspection. And so this is also parsed out. This was the other portion of that list. So between these three areas here, we're basically showing all the planned money for New Hampshire, the planned expenditures for New Hampshire for 2013. And as we move down to the next page, I've basically created a summary table here, that table above, showing the totals per year per funding source. And then moving down to the bottom, we have our program funds. So this is, again, a summary of this table here, just above it. And then we compare that to the anticipated revenues that New Hampshire DOT provided. And these are statewide revenues. So we basically add up all of the program funds for the state, compare it to all of the revenues anticipated for the state, and then we come up with a balance here per year. And so what we need to do with this document is show that we have enough funding to pay for this. So overall, we do have enough funding to pay for this. It does not show that we have enough federal funding to pay for this, and the reason that is because in these revenue projections that we received, these were from June, and I believe since June, a lot of the 2012 projects that haven't been completed in 2012 or have been delayed, those through minor revisions and amendments to the statewide transportation improvement program have been pushed out to 2013. So while it looks like we are running in the red for federal dollars here, we're actually, after all these minor revisions, breaking even or actually in the black for these projects, and that will be explained in the document. But I just wanted to give everybody an idea of how we were doing financial constraint for this document. It's a pretty involved process. Talked with Nick Alexander from New Hampshire DOT about this. He looked over the tables I've created, and he basically gave the thumbs up to give a few recommendations for clarifying some of the information on the document, but he thought it looked pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with that on our first try.
Oh, Mark?
Yep.
Could you clarify for the members? So when they're reading this and they look at the purple and it says Strafford Region Program Funds,
Yep.
and then you read New Hampshire Regional Program Funds, so does the regional include the Strafford for clarification?
The Strafford region, if you're looking at a map of the state, represent all the projects that have specifically been called out for the Strafford region. That next box down, the New Hampshire Regional, that basically looks like the rest of the state without the Strafford region projects included in there. So
Okay, thank you.
between the two, we're showing the entire state. And then again, we have that statewide category, which is kind of, I guess, kind of flexible where it's going to be spent over the year. It really comes down to where the priorities are for DOT at that point, or the state transportation.
Are there no funds allotted for safe routes?
There are funds allotted for Safe Routes to School. In 2013, I don't know that we have any funds in our region programs. I believe that our Safe Routes to School funding has been programmed for 2012, and towns that have that, communities that have that right now, are currently spending it. So that's a 2012 authorization or obligation of funding.
So the answer is the funding shows up in the orange category, right? At the state level.
Yep, yeah, and that would represent that there's funding in the Safe Routes program, but it hasn't been committed to specific projects yet. So they
So
have.
it isn't that it was zeroed out?
It's not zeroed out. There's a pool of funding, but it just hasn't been parsed out at this point. And that's what that statewide category is really for, to hold that money before they know exactly where it's going to go.
I believe I'm Nancy Mayville from DOT. There's an application round just
Yep.
opening for coming applications for Safe Routes to Schools. So there is funding ahead of us.
Yep, there's the round 6, I believe, is coming up this fall sometime. Yep.
On statewide items, do you want to explain, like, when you're doing revenue estimates, what formula are you using? What are your assumptions? How do you determine what the regional share of those items is?
Yep. I actually don't think I have it shown on here. So for the funding assumptions for this that's shown here, or the revenue side of
The revenue side.
the revenue side of things, this actually came out of I don't know if it was the last amendment or when the 10-year plan was approved. They had the 2013 through 2016 shown in the financial constraint shown in the Federal Highways table. That Federal Highways provides a table that shows all their funding categories, and or it's a template document for states to use to show their program funding versus the revenue, so that they can prove financial constraint. And these actually come directly out of that. And so I believe this came out of the first 10 years of the first 4 years of the 10-year plan. So this dates back to late June, and that's why the 2013 balance doesn't look balanced in this. And Nick explained that it's probably best to write that out and explain it, because until this document is approved, those minor revisions don't necessarily get adopted into it, or they're dynamic until that point. And that was the advice I got. So,
And then for revenue assumptions beyond the stiff years,
yep.
that's where I think you're using some kind of formula that's based on
Yep.
mileage.
Out through the 10-year plan, I believe that, so this would be years 2017 through 2022. I believe that we used the assumptions from the moving ahead or laid out in the moving ahead for progress in the 21st century surface transportation bill that was passed, which basically, funds New Hampshire or funds, I guess, most states at current levels of funding. So roughly 160 million a year is what I understand. And the way that the information that DOT provided indicated that we should use a 3% inflation rate, and basically just applied that to the years going out beyond where we had the revenue or the actual revenues that we knew. Basically just applied that factor, and that's how we, extrapolated out the federally programmed dollars, and we did that for federal transit dollars also. The state program dollars are somewhat different. The state utilizes a lot of bonding, a lot of innovative financing, which is bonding and other sources, and turnpike revenues. And so one of the things I noticed, and I talked with DOT about this a little bit, because I was somewhat confused about how we should be projecting our turnpike revenues or some of the other revenues out beyond this point. And because the historical success the turnpike program has had with just their program bonding, the assumption was that whatever the year of expenditure was beyond 2017, we would basically just match that, or be able to match that with turnpike revenue, based on historical success, I guess, with those programs. And beyond that, we've had so much success with bonding, and they've run their bonding program really well. Nick indicated that we should just assume that they have the bonding capacity to do that, and if for some reason in the future we don't have that bonding capacity, the project will disappear from the list. And so that's the latest planning assumption, and that's what we're going with in this document. And that will all be laid out in the text of the document also. Just so, I'm very clear about what our planning assumptions are, so that we can show financial constraint in these documents.
Thank you.
Yep. The other big, I guess, steps forward we've taken. We've updated the text of the Transportation Improvement Program, reformatted the document. A lot of the old text, this is also available online for folks on our website under Transportation, the tip stip page. I think that was in the memo also. We've basically gone through, reworked the introduction a little bit, moved some things around so that the whole document flowed a little bit better. We go through the document, there's still some editing that needs to be done in the document to finalize things. I guess overall, the text hasn't changed in a huge way. A lot of the language in it is federal language directly out of the Code of Federal Regulations, and some of the other guiding documents, I guess, for our practices as an MPO. So we go through the development of the TIP, what this involves, how it relates to the state 10-year plan, how our project solicitation and long-range plan relate to transportation improvement program, and how that works in New Hampshire, which is slightly different than a lot of other states because we have a 10-year transportation plan. Continuing through, we give the schedule, which I still need to change this bottom date here, past 2010. Basically gives the schedule from the project solicitation round in the spring of 2011 through the 10-year plan process, and then talking about how that feeds into the 4-year transportation improvement plan, and then going back to the start where we go back out to project solicitation this winter or spring. Some federal language about the development and what's required in the transportation improvement program. Just getting a little more in depth about some of the relationships between the Metro Plan and the transportation improvement program. Diagram of the process that I believe this is directly off of the Federal Highways documents here. It's been in our tip for a while. And then I get into financial analysis and the financial constraint process that we went into a little bit. I give the federal regulations here directly out of 23 U.S. or Code of Federal Regulations 450, talking about what the tip needs to have in it, how it needs to show financial constraint. And then I talk a little bit about the process we went through this summer, where we had the approval of the new surface transportation bill, how that caused a little bit of a challenge figuring out what that meant for funding and how we addressed that, or how the MPOs in New Hampshire addressed that collaboratively with New Hampshire DOT, Federal Highways, Federal Transit, and other groups. And then I talked about, this is a brief description of the methodology for calculating the financial constraint in the documents. It's going to be a little bit more in depth as we go along, giving some planning assumptions also. And so that's basically where the TIP document is. There's a little bit more that needs to be done to it. The project list and the financial constraint needs to be incorporated into the document, but we're looking pretty good and things are pretty much squared away at this point with all the meat of the document, the work that actually needs to be done to make it happen. And do you want to go into the AQA a little bit?
Sure, yeah. And again, just getting back to the air quality analysis, that's part of this process where we actually take the projects that we anticipate or want to see happen. We actually run them through our vehicle emissions model. So it's a slightly different process now where the MPOs model their region, and we convert those model outputs into inputs that MOVES can use. MOVES is a program, it's called Motor Vehicle Emission Simulator, and that's the EPA model for doing these types of air quality determinations. So the MPOs run their models using latest planning assumptions. We feed that data to DES. who runs moves, and then ultimately lets us know if we're under budget or over budget. But this document goes into detail about our process here. Let's see. And again, there's still, like the TIP and long-range plan, there's still some work that needs to be done to finish formatting this and add the project tables at the end and the appendices, but more or less it goes through why we need to do this, purpose and the scope, shows the communities that we're responsible for modeling or reporting this information on in the Strafford region. There's only 6 communities in the Strafford region that are in that EPA designated non-attainment area. It's mainly along the seacoast and up into Somersworth and Rochester. Let's see, there's a quick view of what the non-attainment area communities. We share our model with Rockingham, so this shows not only our region but Rockingham's as well. And the colored communities here are those communities that are in that non-attainment area for ozone. And just continuing down, this is still in the purpose and scope. It gets into the background about federal regulations. Quite a lot of detail in here. I tried to make it not so technical, but some things are a little bit technical by nature. So goes through our analysis years that we agreed upon through the interagency consultation process. These are just the years from the beginning of the TIP through the end of the long-range plan that we chose to be our analysis years, which we modeled, which we have to show our modeled emissions against our budget. I'll show you the summary tables at the end. Goes through our procedures, how we coordinated, our particular methodology. This is also RPC's, Rockingham Planning Commission's methodology as well, because we share that model. Our public participation process, latest planning assumptions that we use, such as employment, population, housing, all that stuff that gets fed into the model so that it can project out future emissions for those later analysis years that I was just talking about. A couple graphs showing some of our planning assumptions for population, growth rate, regional employments, projections. These are actually model outputs that we got from running the model this time around: population, housing units, employment. So we're taking what the model is outputting and we're comparing it against its real data or projected data that we've projected out to 2040. It goes through in depth about our model, what it can do, how it was developed, different steps involved with the modeling process. Let's see. There's also some good information about calibration and actually how accurate it is when it was last calibrated. Also included in here is when it's, right now we're actually going through an update process with our modeling consultant. We're trying to get our base year updated to 2010, which hopefully we should have done in sometime this winter. So it'll be recalibrated. We'll have some new figures to put in here, but it explains that we're going through that update process right now. Here's some of the calibration statistics showing how accurate it is, basically. And then it gets into our actual emissions calculation and what moves is, how our data gets fed into moves. Let's see, and then of course the final results, or these are still draft because it's not an official approved document yet, but these are most likely the final results. At least we certainly hope they're going to be the final results. This is showing results for volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, by analysis year, by model region. So as you can see, Rockingham and Strafford have one shared model region. You can see right here that this is our budget for our non-attainment area, and this is what we're showing for VOCs in tons per day. So it's close in our first analysis year. It's actually right at the budget. So that was a little not alarming, but
Dan,
sure.
I was just telling Lee,
Yeah.
when we saw that we were that close with the numbers, the computer people went over their numbers again, and apparently there were some modest changes. Apparently, stage 2 vapor recovery either was or was not included in the original, and it wasn't supposed to be, and the original budget was set up with moves 21A. When they redid everything, the budget came out, I think, at 9.2 for VOC, so you're a little better off than we
Okay,
thought.
fantastic. All right. So I guess there will be some updates to these tables then. Okay. Well, that's even better then. So if so it sounds like this should be a 9.2 right here. All right, that's great. And then getting to the next table, which is nitrogen oxides. Again, you have our budget, and then what we're showing by analysis year, by model region. So, but basically, we are in conformity, and it looks like we're going to stay that way. Again, this is all draft, and we're still fine-tuning it, formatting it, and we still have to get the project lists in at the end, showing what was modeled, what didn't have to be modeled. But all that detail is coming. We'll be working on it for the next week or two. Just getting some more final drafts out there on our website for review. That's all I have for.
Dan, do you have any idea why it kind of levels off at 2032 and then it seems to bump on all these out in 2040? Is that just the population projections going up or more cars on the road, or my memory serves me, usually goes down over time? It seems like.
It does, but yeah, like you said, there's that slight population increase. It really has to do with the baby boomers.
Okay.
Where you're going to see that dip in VMT as that population grows older, but then a slight little upside in those later years and after 2040. So it basically has to do with population. So, yeah. That's the only question.
Questions, ma'am?
Is it a polite way of you saying, when we're gone, the other people replacing us are going to drive more?
Sort of, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
I know they're not reproducing as much as we do.
All right. Through all that, did we do project updates? That? Yes, but I was going to move that down a little bit further. Okay. We're now on item 5. For those of you who came in a bit late, we're going to go back and do item 3 now that you folks are here and we have a forum. We'll hit a couple of items first. Number 5, project updates. Matt?
All right, just a quick update on a project we've been working with Rochester Economic and Engineering staff on. We've been providing mapping and grant application writing support for the sewer and water project currently being proposed for the Salmon Falls Road area. That water will be run from the Woodland Green area, for those of you who aren't familiar. It's the southern section of Salmon Falls Road, up to the intersection with Milton Road, Route 125. The sewer project will actually extend from the Salmon Falls Road pump station up to Route 125 intersection and then down to the Market Basket Plaza. One of the big pushes behind this project is the moving in of Stonewall Kitchen production to the area of Route 125, that northern area there where the intersection with Salmon Falls Road is. they'll be needing extra capacity, so they'll be upgrading along Salmon Falls Road, both sewer and water, obviously. Currently, contributions financially will be about $500,000 from both Stonewall Kitchen and Market Basket, along with around $946,000 from the city, and hopefully with the grant awarding, around $2 million from Economic Development Administration. And it's expected to create around 100 new jobs as well in the city of Rochester. That's it.
Thank you. I have a question. If you're talking about what I would say is the far end of Salmon Falls Road, when we used to get a lot of rain, that would sometimes flood. Will that be addressed as we're improving the sewer lines?
I don't think that will be specifically addressed by this project, but I know that is an engineering concern for the city of Rochester, and I guess Mark looks like he might.
I know that Rochester is planning down the road to do some, I guess just improvements on Salmon Falls Road, include building improvements, other types of improvements on there, and I believe they will address drainage issues, and there's not too much you can do with it being pretty close to the same level as the river, but I'm sure they'll take measures to address some of those. And it may be happening at the same time as this project.
Seems like a logical time to do it.
Right,
Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously this project involves the ripping up of some road section, and that will be repaved. So my guess is that they wouldn't make that paving investment without some consideration for improvements of the Salmon Falls Road area.
All right, thank you. Are there any other project updates? Queries, questions?
Yeah, I'll give an update on Summersworth Transportation Enhancement Project. We received the intergovernmental estimate, the IGE, from VHB. We had a couple concerns. We didn't feel it had a couple of things that the LPA manual required that it had, so we sent them back. I talked to them. They're on, they know what, like the scope of the project, written description, a couple other things in their budget that they didn't have, so we sent it back to them, and we're waiting them to give it back to us so we can get to the table and get this under contract, hopefully.
Great.
Thank you.
I have a question. Who did your IG, or whatever they call it, the government?
We did them in-house. Well, they did it. They do it, the consultant,
Right.
and then we took it, myself and our engineer, reviewed it, looked at the LPA manual, figured out that it didn't have this, didn't have that, and then asked them for it.
So your town, city engineer did?
Yeah, it's not easy.
Well, that's
kind of like picking.
We ran into that situation.
It's like, I don't do.
DOT finally came forward and said, "We'll do it for you," because we don't have a town engineer who can do that kind of work.
Yep.
So I was just
Yeah,
curious.
it's not. I mean, how many hours is it going to take? Well, we're not in the business. We're not in the private sector. We don't do it, but
Yeah.
we did it.
I just have a comment. We went through in Summersworth, in Newmarket, we put together our first request for reimbursement. I was just amazed at the level of detail that DOT was requiring for they want to know the number of hours that each person, for each invoice, the number of hours each person put into the project, the labor rates, and to do the whole analysis to show how it tied into the original budget. And yeah, we can do it, but it's really very time consuming to be able to account for a project on that basis. I'm sure the engineers do that at the local level, we're sort of at a loss. But
your work or?
They want to know for the first, we got an invoice from Du Bois came for $12,000,
Okay.
let's say. They want to know the number of hours, who worked on the project, the overhead rate, the profit, the expenses. They want the spreadsheet that they require, they actually want to see a mirror version of that for each invoice to assure that you're on track with the project. I just think that's a little excessive, and that's just my observation.
Well, wouldn't Du
It
Bois
took us-
and King give you that?
They would, but excuse me,
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay.
And I've worked with community development block grants in my career, and they're usually very thorough and, requiring documentation, but I've never seen that level of documentation required of municipalities.
Two things I guess I would comment on that. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the municipal highways engineer, and I oversee all the community assistance section on all these programs. We wrote the LPA manual we are meeting in that manual the expectations of federal highway. We don't make these rules up out of thin air just because we feel like it.
I understand that.
But at the same time, you know, and a lot of it is, it's not just federal highway, it's accounting standards that are coming out of GAO and all different places. But the underlying philosophy is that you really need to be aware of what they are doing and how they're spending their money and comparing it to the budget that you have with them and the work tasks so that you can compare the two and make sure they're, you know, you need the documentation and you really, in my opinion, should want to see this stuff so you can track how your project is going.
I appreciate that. We also have a project where we have a limited budget. We know now that it's going to cost us far more than what we anticipated. To me, it would make more sense to have that time spent on engineering to get to the product than to be doing paperwork analysis. And I, as a project manager at the local level, I don't have time to check the figures and the spreadsheets. And I appreciate that because you should have good monitoring. It's just that I find so far, and I've worked with a lot of federal grant programs, that the requirements are really a little bit onerous. And I'm doing my best to follow them, but I spent 4 hours yesterday just putting together all the boilerplate forms and stuff so I can submit the first
Usually the first one's the toughest,
requisition.
but then after that, they should roll along for
Right. But I guess, and I work for a community where we have a lot of experience with federal grants. What about a small town like Winchester out in the western part of the state? They don't have a planner. They've never really been involved in these programs. I mean, I would think it'd be very onerous for them to, you know, attempt some of these projects because of the paperwork requirements, and that's with all due respect to you.
I'd just like to say, we supply all those details, and it is hard when you're first setting it up, and we're willing, just like Nancy and the staff at DOT, the community planning, to work with the communities and helping to set up those templates. But once you get the templates set up and you train your consultants to, part of this process is training the consultants to put that level of detail in. But once you have that, it's really good for your project management, and I find what Nancy said is very true. It's very helpful in the project management, keeping it on track, having those hard discussions with the consultants and being really clear when it is that you really do need more money and there's justification for it, and it's very clear to everyone involved in the project. So, yeah, they're hard to get started in, but I find it helps to be efficient and effective in project management. And we're willing to work with anybody trying to, you know, first time through, whether you have a planner or don't have a planner. And we're, you know, we've got models.
It's just really time consuming.
Yeah, we've got models in our office, you know, staff that do this, we can help.
We're finding, we have the LPA training that probably I think Diane went to. We had 4 sessions in the spring. We have a session in September, at the end of September, which is full. We do have a session in October for the 2 days. I think it's October 25th and 30th. There's still quite a lot of space in. We probably won't be running another session till spring, so this will be it for the moment. But what we are finding is that a lot of municipalities are having their financial person come to the training, as well as the consultants, you know, their administrative staff that puts together a lot of their invoices are coming to the training just to hear more about the documents that are required and have an understanding of the process. So that might be a suggestion too, if you have, you know, a financial office in Newmarket that.
Well, we've been without a finance director for over a year, so all this is falling to me as the town planner because no one in the finance department has the time and resources to do it. With all due respect, I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Another option.
Thank you, I appreciate what you're saying.
Another option that just came to mind is that I know there are some towns and cities who are pretty strong at handling the invoicing and the paperwork, you know, if kind of talking to each other might help too. You know, for example, I know the person in Rochester is very strong handling all the paperwork and the invoices and stuff. So if she has developed a system of tracking or something, then that might be good to talk amongst each other, just to see what helps. We're trying to upgrade our templates too, to provide you what you need. For example, when you mentioned the IGEs, the independent government estimates, we're building some information from past projects just for types of projects and how many hours it costs, just so you can see it and use it, as you're doing your IGE.
All right, thank you. Mark?
Yep, just another quick project update. We received a request from DOT recently to reach out to 7 member communities to sort of gain a better breakdown of transportation-related expenditures as reported in the MS5 report in order to coincide them with line items within the Form 536, which is a federal highway form. So we've basically been reaching out to town administrators, assessing departments, basically anybody that can help us to try to break down some of those expenditures as listed in the MS5 report so that federal highways can enter that data into their Form 536. And that's basically what we've been doing. We've reached out to all communities so far, and we're waiting for a couple more MS5 reports, and hopefully we'll be able to wrap this up for their deadline next Friday. So that's why we'll be reaching out to the communities. You hear from us, that's why.
Again, I made this request every time we fill out the federal 536 form, and it would be really helpful to the process and the effectiveness of the information and statistics that we're supplying from the state of New Hampshire to the federal government if the Department of Transportation and the Department of Revenue Administration and Federal Highways and Federal Transit staff met together and looked at their forms and figured out a way to make them discernible and collection of the same data, because that's where we're having the problem right now. It's not that people aren't willing to do this or aren't doing it, it's the fact that we have apples and zucchinis, not even apples and oranges, So a discussion at that level would be very beneficial to everyone, and something that could be done easily. The collection, the ability to do it, and the information requested is there. It's just that conversation and the development of the questions and the request isn't quite together yet.
I also think that the timing could be improved a little bit with, I know New Hampshire does, most communities do town meeting in the springtime, and that's when they kind of parse out their budget and gain the, have that in-depth understanding how their general fund is built, how much money's in there, and what it's going towards. And I think once you get 6-8 months out past the time that they were really involved in their budget, it's a lot harder to go back into the general fund and start separating things and remembering where the money for sand for laying on the roads or salt for laying on the road, where that actually is and how much that actually is. That's one of the biggest challenges I think we've run into, is a lot of it's for maintenance and operations kind of things, plowing locally, how much the expenditures are on that, how much they are on purchasing new equipment, and when that's all bundled in, it just becomes a real challenge to break it out retroactively. So I really agree with what Cynthia said, that I think it could be pretty easy. I think that the state's collecting information already. It would be very helpful to just sit down so we're all collecting the same information, or get what we need right off the bat and not have to be banging our heads against the wall trying to get this information.
Thank you. If there's nothing else on project updates, sort of under the title Other Business, I'd like to go back to item 3.1, the minutes of the August 3rd meeting. You should have a draft in front of you. It's multi-page. Any discussion about it? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as written. Yes.
I wasn't here, but under 7, other business, first paragraph, last sentence, it says, which will same time and expense. I would think it was save. I don't want to speak for you, but I think it would be save time.
Save time.
I have one. under 5.1, I guess third paragraph down, it talks about, Mark Ambrosi explained at this point, lists comprised of all red list bridges over the Boston 2 main. Is it Boston 2 main or Boston N main?
Isn't it Pan Am Railways?
What's that?
Isn't it Pan Am Railways?
Oh, I don't know. I thought it used to be called the B&M.
Yeah, but isn't it now
Now
Pan
it's
Am
something
Railways?
else? Yeah, the Pan Am?
I'm asking.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't
I
know.
believe so, yes.
I think, yeah, B&M Railroad or.
Okay, so
So it should be Pan Am Railways.
Pan Am? Okay, good. Any other concerns? All right.
Motion to approve is amended.
Second?
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Continuing with item 6, any other business? First Mark, and then anyone else has something to add. After that, we go to citizens forum.
All right. Just wanted to give an update on Whittier Street in Dover. I think at our last meeting, the bridge.
What
had-
street?
Whittier Street in
Whittier,
Dover.
okay.
Last time we met, the bridge had been closed for repairs. Initially, it was supposed to be like a 2-week repair program. Discussions with Brad, the executive director of Coast, it sounded like the bridge was closed indefinitely. It's reopened, which is great. It makes my drive to work a lot easier. Coast buses are running on it. Buses in general are running on it again. If anybody has any information about if the bridge is still efficient, or what happened with it, and why it's reopened, I was under the impression.
I can ask. It opened like 2 days after that meeting.
Yeah.
So I don't,
I have no idea. Last I heard was that it was falling into the water pretty much, and now it's-
I can call Dave White or Doug and ask them.
They did a lot of repaving. I don't know if it's held together with, I don't know, like there's tar and stuff
What
at
did
this
Joe Vallejo
point, or what's going on. So
Close all the rebar.
it's definitely smoother than it was before. So I'm really happy about that.
Yes.
Mark and I will be attending the Smpo conference next week, and Tuesday through Friday in Saratoga Springs. And 25 years ago, they started their first conference in Saratoga Springs. So we're going back up for the 25th anniversary. So there's going to be a lot of information on Map 21. So we're really excited about going to this and learning and meeting with colleagues and just learning a whole lot. And so we'll be back in October with a lot of information to share with you about Map 21 and where things are going. So it's also exciting, just north of Saratoga Springs is one of those areas where there's an enormous expansion going on in advanced technology, just like what is happening in Rochester at this time. Similar type of companies and manufacturing, and there's some really interesting, unique programs that they're doing, and so we're going to be going to look at that site, so that also is very interesting because we have something similar in our region. So I'm very much looking forward to being at Smpo next week.
Speaking of open bridges, any update on a closed bridge separating Milton and Lebanon, New Hampshire, Lebanon, Maine?
I can speak to that.
Great, thank you, Nancy.
I am in communication with the town administrator in Milton and Maine DOT and Lebanon, Maine about that. We're scheduled for a meeting, I believe, later in September to sit down and talk about what our options are going forward. We met May 2011, I think it was the first meeting that Maine DOT sponsored. They will be the lead for the permanent replacement. Milton, New Hampshire owns half the bridge. The state, Maine DOT, or the state of Maine, owns the other half on the Maine side. So it will take 4 parties to put funding together to make something happen there. The bridge on the New Hampshire side, again, is owned by Milton, New Hampshire, so they could potentially come into the state aid bridge program, and we would provide 80% of what they need for the replacement. The town would need to pay 20%. On the Maine side, Maine DOT has found a pot of money to pay for their side. Potentially, the town of Lebanon, New Hampshire might have to chip in some money over there. That would be for the long-term fix. The other thing that we've talked about is a short-term situation. If we want to put something temporary in, a temporary bridge, there's costs associated with that. So then the discussion is we want to spend money on that, or wait and just put the money into the permanent fix. I also understand that there's a problem right now that it's become an attractive nuisance where people are going out on the superstructure and diving off it as boats are approaching the channel, and so there's some issues there. So one of the things we're going to talk about when we meet later in the month is potentially removing the bridge for the short term, and then I don't know what else we will do. And again, there's 4 parties involved. Everybody has to come up with money. I can say on the New Hampshire side, the state aid bridge program, if we were to chip in the 80%, we really don't have the money. I don't know where I'm going to I manage that program, and I don't know how I'm going to fit them in. In the state aid bridge program right now, we are programming new projects in 2023. That's how far out our money is committed. So if somebody has an emergency, then we start juggling all the people who are in the program who also think they're emergencies. So it becomes kind of a tough juggling act to accommodate people. So I don't know how it's all going to play out for everybody to come up with the money that they need to, and
You're
what
right.
the time frame will be.
It is a favorite swimming spot.
Yeah,
And-
and apparently it's become a problem. So I'm looking at the temporary situation or this potentially removing the bridge. Maine DOT said no, they couldn't do that. I'm talking to our Bureau of Bridge Maintenance to see if we have the potential at New Hampshire DOT to remove the bridge and potentially put up a temporary bridge.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to say, Nancy, we're hearing appreciation from residents and businesses in the area again for, it's now starting to show up, the annual maintenance and the repaving, and people are appreciative of the repaving of the roads that's going on, not only at the state, but local towns are also doing it right now, and it's very helpful for people. So, and then just a reminder to the front office, I saw in my email, Durham is still looking for the meeting on Route 108 for the 108 bike shoulder project, and we also haven't heard anything yet. So there was an agreement in late July, early August, that we would have a public meeting to update, and we had a very long conversation with the project manager, and I've seen the project design staff out on Route 108, and the students are back, and the bike traffic and commute traffic is up, and it's really dangerous on that road.
Okay, I can take that message back. It's not
Thank you.
something I'm involved
Right,
in.
but also the compliments, we can see the number one priority, and it shows up on the roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other concerns relative to this? Yes. Warren.
Just a quick update with the scenic byways application. The city of Dover is going to be voting on their resolution on whether or not they're going to support the project this Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the city chambers. After this, it's going to be pretty much taken off the table for Dover. So we'll know on Wednesday if they're going to support this part of the project or not. The nomination application is finished, and we're going to submit it with or without Dover. So I don't think we have any Dover citizens here, but if you own a business or would like to go,
I live in, I'm not here to represent Dover, but I do
besides
live
you
in
guys.
Dover.
But if anyone wants to attend the meeting and speak or submit a letter in support of the scenic byway process, they're going to meet on Wednesday.
All right. Thank you. There's nothing else for item 6. Item 7, citizens forum. I don't know if we have anyone that's not part of the committee that would like to speak. Seeing none, I would move to item 8, motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Good, thank you very much.